So this is Sebastian van Wessem from Kingdom Alliance, and I'm here with a new friend of mine, Marcus Ahrend. We met last November in the city of Berlin. There was a very special conference there. Friends of Israel, basically, that were gathering together from all over Germany, and Ariel Blumenthal and Usher and Trader were there from Tikkun Global. Great friends of us, and one of the people that I really connected with is Marcus, and I'm right now at his place.
Yeah.
And I forgot the name of the Ziegenhain or something.
You didn't forget. It was brilliant. Ziegenhain, yeah.
Ziegenhain,
very good.
Yes. And so Ziegenhain is, tell me where it is approximately. It's about 3 hours drive from my house, but that doesn't mean anything to us.
It's in the like very middle western part of Germany. It's very, as you can probably see, it's very rural here, a lot of nature, but not too far away from, I think Cologne is like 15 minutes from here. So
the streets are extremely narrow. It's dangerously narrow, but it's a beautiful area. That's for sure. And so we connected. Marcus and his wife. They're part of a ministry called Friends of Jesus. It's a local congregation here. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that? How you ended up in church leadership, and just the short version. I know there's a long story to it.
Yeah. It's hard to summarize, but I actually have been here from the very beginning on of the first ministry. Today we say we are a church that lives in community. So my parents, they come from Hamburg, the northern part of Germany. We went through, when we were little kids, through a lot of struggles financially. My parents, when they got to know Jesus, they had to go through a lot of struggles, but finally, at a birthday party, everything started with a lot of teenagers. Eventually people would then move together when they would turn 18. And today we are in this tiny village. I think all in all, we are 170 people living here. From our congregation, we are about 50, including the kids living here. So yeah, and we love being together. We love not only to meet Sundays, but it's just a privilege to be in walking distance to many of them and meet them just in my every life.
That's great. So yesterday I actually spoke at Friends of Jesus for some of the committed membership leadership of the congregation.
Yes.
And I actually spoke on 2 Peter chapter 3 about speeding up the day of the Lord and how our responsibility lies within the framework of the Lord coming back, and how do we prepare things for his return. And I really enjoyed the togetherness, the love, the warmth among the people. And so it really is a community that's together and wanting to really grow. There's high commitment, I noticed. I believe that you told me a little bit about it, but maybe you want to explain it to our listeners, how this commitment came about and why you do it the way you do it, because it's not like every other church that does it this way, obviously.
Yeah, and I just want to, before I start speaking about this, I just want to emphasize we are not speaking or we're not thinking that we are something like an elite circle, that we are something special, but we just found out that for us, a certain degree of accountability to each other, a certain degree of also the awareness of planting yourself to a place, knowing that God, also sometimes asking the questions, is this still the place where I should be? But just to cultivate a culture like this of strong relationships, friendships, not only being project oriented or ministry oriented, but also to underline how important the everyday life is, and meet each other in the everyday life. Let the kids play together during the day. This is just, of course, in our Christian world, we connect this to discipleship. And yes, discipleship definitely is one aspect of it. And we have people who just joined, many people from not religious backgrounds. And with them, we walk a closer path walk of relationship. But then we also have people who have been are with us for 20 years. And there we always emphasize, although we are close together, this doesn't contradict to the fact that you can be mature, that you can walk in your own calling that you have, but then knowing that this all comes together in a house where Jesus is our cornerstone.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And so what you're seeing, what I've noticed from your story and from seeing it yesterday is that that is actually an antidote almost against the individualism in our society. Because what I've been in church leadership for 20 years myself, even longer if you count denominational leadership positions. So I've seen how easy it is to really live a life that's separate from each other and just gathering on a Sunday, and even there you don't really see the relationships develop that you want to see develop in a faith that's actually supposed to be in close relationship to one another. So if you look at the term friends of Jesus, it's not only being friends with him, it's being friends with one another, family of one another.
Yes. I mean, we could talk hours about this, but I think if you walk, if you love Jesus and if you live a life as a Christian, that just automatically, just naturally, there comes a desire the Spirit evokes in us. This is the way how we are created, that we are longing for some kind of community, some kind of relationships. In the environment that we live in, it's just hard to translate. I mean, like if we read the book of Acts, it's not easy to just in the everyday life integrate genuine relationships, a part of the Sunday or a part of a house group that you have. But I'm a witness. I can say it's possible. It's some kind, especially in the environment, the European culture, Western culture, it takes an effort, but I think we will go more and more into the direction everywhere in churches. I see it here and there, people coming to us. And again, it's not like a model that we are. I would never say, okay, you have to live like this, you have to live like that. Of course, we can share a little bit of our experience, but still every church has its also own culture. But I think following Jesus, I mean, like if we look at the first commandment, is always connected of loving people. And if we should love Jesus and the same time, in the same way also people, it's not an option. It's just the way how we are created.
Right. Yeah, so I think you're right. I think we're in a time of rediscovery of what it means to be an Acts 2 church almost.
Yeah.
And obviously it's the society right now is very different than it was 2,000 years ago. People are working further away from home, travel longer, but still, which part of the essence of what the church was like 2,000 years ago can we embrace as we do church in our life even today?
Yeah.
And it's beautiful to see that happen.
Yeah, and I think on this journey, we're so used to business systems, and it would be, I think, it's dangerous even if we made community to a business system. So just knowing now we need this, we cannot just put it into a box.
Right.
But we have to, because when you go now to more, let's say, Eastern, more not European countries, more into the Eastern countries, or even more South in Europe or Africa, it's like not everybody is like the European or Western church. There are differences and there are treasures that are there still today.
Yes.
And so it's a journey reflected in the relationship to God, and then naturally we have to follow, and only little by little, don't put too much weight on us, but little by little walk into this direction.
Right. And I think it's important to realize you cannot just copy what Friends of Jesus is doing here and implement it in your own church. I think it's important to look at the biblical values that are in the background, embrace these, and start to ask the Lord how you can actually implement that in your own local setting there, because it usually doesn't work if you just import a system from some other church that does something really well. It usually doesn't. I mean, I've tried and miserably failed during the years, doing it this way. So it's important to really value what God has placed in that particular community, but then still always keep looking at the ministry you're building. Actually, God is building it from a Acts 2 perspective, and even an Acts 15 perspective. How do you bring in people? How do you do life together? How do you pray together? How do you worship together? Study the Word together? All these things, and there needs to be solutions for that in our day and age. But it's inspiring to hear the stories, to see what God's doing in the context over here in a Western culture, basically,
yes.
which is amazing. So
Yeah.
really good. So there's another thing that struck me. This is also probably why we met in November, it was his Friends of Israel. I don't even know what the name of the conference was, but that's like the term I kept hearing.
I mean, it was actually the first of these kind of conferences, the first time I attended it. So
okay. For me too. Yeah. So in Germany. So we met there, and so one of the things that you were telling me a little bit about the trips you guys take to Israel from time to time, every year around Sukkot, which is the Feast of Tabernacles. And this is a really inspiring story there. And we talked about it just a little bit. And to me, with the book that I'm writing, All Things Restored, the ministry we're doing in Kingdom Alliance, the preaching I do at Celebration Church and other places, I'm trying to, I do a lot of work trying to go back to the text in its own context, and to really break away from the framework and the narrative that Christianity is a very different religion that has been separated from Judaism, and just really showing no, it's actually firmly rooted in Judaism of 2,000 years ago, obviously. Yes. Second Temple Judaism, for those who know the term. And so this is something we need to realize when we're also in relationship with Jewish people today, because there has been a lot of hurt. One thing that I wasn't aware of for a long time, and still until I started to watch, like the documentaries from Frontier Alliance, Covenant and Controversy. I mean, I knew a little bit about, for instance, anti-Semitism in the church. But then you start to realize there's actually a bigger problem, which is called replacement theology, supersessionism. And there's a whole system that basically developed in Christianity since probably the late 2nd century that made sure that there was a big divide between Judaism and Christianity. And obviously it wasn't just from the side of Christianity, it was also from the side of Judaism. But then it's refreshing to see that a ministry like yours in Israel is actually building those bridges again and taking away some of the negative sentiments that Jewish people have against the church for very good reasons. I think that you're working hard on basically, peeling off those layers of the onion, which always makes you cry, obviously. And so tell me a little bit more about how did you guys start doing ministry in Israel? What does it look like? What are some of the questions you're answering? Some of the conversations you're having, and how can we pray for that?
Yeah, we always consider what we're doing in Israel, and for us it's a privilege that we are allowed to do this, removing stones. You use the picture of the onion. We always use the picture of stones it's like back in the days when the physical land of Israel was restored, the first Jews, the pioneers there, they removed stones, physical stones. And I think we are in an age where spiritual stones are being removed on the way of restoration to the spiritual part of the land. And I mean,
on that note, do you realize that in Acts chapter 2, I think it's verse 46, that they came together, the disciples came together with glad and generous hearts? You know that the word picture behind generous is actually a heart that is, the stones are removed from that heart.
No, I didn't know that.
and so it actually is a direct connection to the land that, for farming, you had to pick these stones every year to be able to plant seed and whatever you need to
I
do.
love
So
that.
it really ties together. Anyway.
Yeah. Oh well. Yeah. So as you can tell, like to give you a little background, we are, this is an old farmhouse. I sometimes feel like we also have some Scottish Highland cattle. My brother does it. We're working outside here sometimes. We have usual jobs as well, but we also do some things here on the yard and helping some other friends in the village. And we are very, very simple people. And so when all of this started in Israel was actually
How long ago was that?
this was 2014,
Okay.
so some years ago already. I was actually, that year I was with my wife at the Kotel, at the Wailing Wall, the Western Wall. And so I was praying, and my wife was in the part for the women. And I had this, obviously I knew that, that they believe in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. But in that minute praying there, I saw all these like people, black and white, passionately praying. I thought, like, this was a moment for me again of revelation. I was like, hey, come on, I'm praying and they are praying. We're praying to the same God. This is okay. This was just the experience there. This was just very, very special. Then I thought about the differences, and I also thought about, okay, how did I, in my personal life, how did I experience let's say the personal connection to God? And in my case, and I know in some others, it's like we have different ways how God approaches us. But in my life, it was also through music actually, musical worship. And then I as a very young kid, I already had these experiences of like in worship sessions with God, very intimate. It was not so much about the people around me, but I was just in like meeting my Creator. And so then I also thought about the occasions that we have here in the streets, in the nations, not in Israel, where we play in the streets and where people, just random people, stop and are sitting there and say, okay, something is different here. The atmosphere is different. And then I thought, okay, if this is possible in Germany, why shouldn't it be possible to connect people with God here in the streets? So we ended up, it was just after the Gaza War, 2014. Right. I asked some friends here in the church whether they would like to join. So we bought some battery powered amplifiers. We also brought, also in the very first year, we're still doing this, we always bring a couple thousand handwritten postcards. Just with, in the front there is like where we say, the project is called Israel, We Stand With You. On the back we have handwritten messages, just plain. Some are prayers, some are just psalms where there's a handwritten message from somebody who took time in Europe. Even this is special. And and then we always tell the people, take one home of the postcards in the streets when we make music and put them onto your fridge, and always remember that there are people in Europe who stand with you, who are not silent, who stand against anti-Semitism. And so in the first year, it was enough for us that, we were not experienced. We knew how people would react here. But in Israel, we were like, we talked to our friends here and we were like, okay, what will happen? Will they throw stones at us? Or, and so I still remember the first set playing there in the Ben Yehuda street, for all those who are familiar with the street there, just in front of McDonald's. We set up our banner, the postcards, our music. We started to play music. And then we had some ultra-Orthodox Jews standing there listening to the music. And when we finished a song, they would clap. We were like, they're reacting in a positive way. So this was the very, very first step. And then a journey began. Also here I could talk for hours because we spent so many weeks in Israel meanwhile. And I have to say, every time I'm coming back, I am humbled in a good way, and I'm privileged. It's for me a privilege to see how the restoration is taking place and that we are really living in these times. And we have when we came back first or second year, we sat together here because it's time that we invest, it's finances that we invest, and with our mindset from the nations where I would go, like here in the streets, I would go outside and like actively speak about Jesus, and, like not hiding anything. I mean, like also in Israel, I'm not hiding, but it's just a different approach. I will share you more about this a little later. But we really sat together then and had in a good way, we had like arguments and said, so is this enough? Because with our mindset, we thought, no, we have to like proclaim the name of Yeshua, Jesus, like in front of everybody. We cannot be afraid of his name. We want to be faithful. And but really, God told us, just keep on doing this how you're doing it. And like highlight the aspect of standing with somebody, highlight the aspect of comforting somebody, comforting his people, because it's his. And so we wanted to be good stewards. So we said, okay, well, let's invest the money again, let's invest the time again, let's go. And we didn't know by that time, we didn't know that also God took us on a journey, and that it was also for us. We had to understand, because our mindset, and just stop me if you have questions, our mindset as Christians usually is we tell somebody how to change. We tell somebody what is good for them. It's out of a good intention. And we tell our testimonies here in the streets, and we say, okay, I experienced something that I want you to experience as well. It's not it's not bad at all. But if you face somebody who in the last 2,000 years constantly, somebody in the name of, may it be like you might not be directly connected to some of those who came to Israel, but you are standing like for the cross. And if you are facing a people that through the last 2,000 years suffered and suffered and suffered, all in the name of Jesus, all in the name of Christianity, this is perversion actually. It's actually what we did to this people defines the degree of how we can speak or how we cannot. And so we had to learn. And I would say like the simplicity of this place also, the focus on relationships helped us in that a little, because we knew relationship can only work. This is when it comes to friendships, marriages, or other people that you approach, if you, it's actually the scripture, if you consider them higher than yourself. When you come with a heart set where you say, I received so many things. Every breath is just out of grace. Everything that I have at home, my family, this is all grace. This is not deserved. And if we approach somebody with this heart set, with this mindset, it's just different. So we are not coming to Israel now to tell them you have to do this and this, but to say, okay, and this is a little different. But to say, I am thankful for what I received from your side.
Right. And so I think one of the words that is a red flag for many Jewish people that are aware of the 2,000-year, not always so positive history between Jews and Christianity, is the word conversion. And the understanding of what that means. Can you tell me a little bit about that? How what you've seen that people are expecting when they encounter a Christian who is actively living out his faith in the streets of Jerusalem, and what they normally would expect to happen from what they've seen from other ministries and other people that do this with a good heart. So let's not deny their good intentions there. But how they encounter that compared to the approach that you're sharing right now, and especially around that word conversion. I'd be interested to hear that from you.
Yes, it's an interesting topic, and I give you a little bit more background before I speak about the term of conversion. On this journey that we went the last 10 years, I now looking back can say that the whole journey is a journey of identity. So I knew when I was younger, I know Israel has some important parts in God's eyes. That he chose this people to show me something, but this was knowledge. This was not, for me, it was not very, very deep. Also in our church, I mean, like, we knew that this is important somehow and that we want to take this route. Then we had some years of people, actually from the Messianic body within Israel, investing into us, and they constantly, especially one man, came like for a period of, I don't know, maybe 5 years. He came maybe twice a year and just was together with us.
You mean here in Germany?
Yeah, here in Germany, and really he taught us, but also just he's very strong in relationships, and we just, it was a match because he loved like really just hanging out with each other for hours, but then dropping in here and there some bits of knowledge, and just very natural. And so in the years also through the project, then later on, I must say, to understand how and why God chose Israel, like on a deeper level, this revealed more of God himself. And by getting to know God better, I got to know myself better. Mm-hmm. So I would say this is the whole thing is a topic of restoration. It's the restoration between God and man. And it's a very personal thing. It's a relational thing. Mm-hmm. And so now when we come to Israel, and we had in the first years, firstly, to understand on a deeper level, what does it mean to have Jewish roots? What does it mean? It does not mean we have to become Jewish. It does not mean we have to adapt all the Jewish like culture parts in our own life. But we have to understand what of this being Jewish, of this journey of a Hebrew, of when God chose Abraham and gave him a task, and then this story of reconciliation with manhood or mankind started, or it started actually earlier, but that this whole thing is a plan. Then you understand, okay, the plan is not that we as the Gentiles, the Christians, the good Christians, the Jews have to become Christians in that term, or that we as Christians have to become Jewish. There's so much bigger plan. And so when we and then we come back to relationships. I think in Jesus, when he fulfilled the law through love, and we know that love will last to the end, there is the key. And now coming to Israel and now talking, it's very important that you have to get terminology in order. If you talk in Israel about conversion, they think, and of course they think, they will, if they convert, they leave a belief system, a religion. Mm-hmm.
In the synagogue.
The synagogue. Yeah. They leave the synagogue or the Jewish community. Uh-huh. And from that day on, they find themselves on Sundays in a building with a tower and whatever picture they have. When you go to Israel today, you are in the old city, you see all these people going to churches and kissing stones. So they picture, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do in their eyes. And of course, it's not. So I can really say it's not my, like in that terminology, mm-hmm. It's not my duty, it's not my job to convert anybody.
Right. So let's pause here.
Okay.
So the way how we as Christians casually use the term conversion, it's like we become Christians, we accept Jesus in our lives. That's what we see as conversion. Mm-hmm. But in the mind of a Jewish person, conversion means we step away from our Jewish background, our religious affiliation, our belief system, even our family, and we step out of that and we step into a Christian world,
Mm-hmm.
which is actually not the way how it functioned in the first century either.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because the way how I understand the Book of Acts. And even Acts 15, where you have the Jerusalem Council, is Jewish people who embrace the Jewish Messiah, because we got to remember Jesus is Jewish Messiah, and that's even one thing where that Jews often don't understand, because the way how we presented Jesus, they think he's some kind of white dude, Gentile dude, and so while he is a Jewish Messiah, the Jewish king, basically, and so. Now I lost my train of thought here, and that happens more often. But so conversion for them is about leaving their life behind and becoming something else that they're not. While it's not about that, it's about embracing this Jewish Messiah.
Yes.
And the funny thing is that when the Book of Acts describes Saul's conversion, it actually doesn't even speak about these things.
Yeah.
It doesn't even use the word.
Yeah.
He has a zeal for the God of Israel. Chases after believers because they think they're heretics.
Yeah.
Jesus appears to him, and he turns around. He speaks. Jesus shows him the many things he has to suffer on behalf of his name, but it never uses the term conversion.
Yeah, correct.
So why would we expect that from a Jewish believer who's faithful to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and when he embraces the Jewish Messiah?
Yeah, I think we need to have the perspective of the big picture. I mean, we know, if we read our Bible, we know in the future it will not be about like our ethnical background. It will not be about being, okay, it's hard now, being Christian, being Jewish. We are one in the Jewish Messiah.
Right.
And so this is like another conversation that we could have. But that's true. And and it's interesting, you speaking about Paul. Sometimes if you have very also New Testament educated Jews who are, for example, anti-missionaries, we talked to some of them in the streets.
I didn't even know that was a thing, but anti-missionaries.
Yeah, it is actually. And I can understand them because they want to protect a certain culture and also, let's say like religion. But they are actually, so when they speak to us, or I had this conversation, somebody approaching me and said, "You are so sweet people, and we know your hearts, and we can say it's a genuine heart. But this Paul, they are angry on Paul. So what they did with us." But so this is just a side note. It's just very interesting. So we just see what we can definitely say, like in the last 10 years or even more now, we see a change in this land. And at the same time, I see a change in the church that we can witness in these times. I think we are living in very crucial times. And once we understand that also the heart of the Jews is for the sake of us, when we understand it not only with our minds.
This is Romans 11,
yes,
right? Yeah.
Yes. When we understand this also with our heart, what that means, like this grace, like given to us, this is mind-blowing. And when then we even move a step forward with all the problems that we have in our churches, that actually God is showing us that we didn't manage the light that we received any better than the Jews did the 2,000 years before. Yeah. So we in the last 2,000 years, this also, it should lead us to a position of humility and actual like genuine love. And then we can be, and I want to underline, I understand that what we are doing in the streets, it's nothing, we are just one little piece of the puzzle. We just want to take our piece in responsibility,
Right.
and we know that there's so many other other brothers and sisters who are the same way loving, who experience the same things, just with a different, maybe not through music or but through other things. And in all of that, we can see that or witness that, like John 17, you also spoke about it this last night, the high priestly prayer, or the priestly prayer. This is it's happening. I think not in a great extent yet, but it's starting more and more to happen. People approaching us in the streets, recognizing a certain unity of rooted in friendships and in the love for Yeshua. And so for us, our duty right now is, again, removing stones by building friendships. And those friendships are not like some part of manipulation. It's genuine friendships. So we have so many friends who do not believe in like what I believe. They do not believe in my Messiah or their, but this is okay for me. This is okay because I can be a, for me it's enough that if they and people really do experience something also in the music. I see so many tears. Also the fact us, of course, being German, coming there, although we do not only bring Germans, but this is something I think essential for this time. And again, I think we should, as like people coming from the nations, Christians coming from the nations, we should lay down our motivation or our habit or our view of us being in some, and it might be subtle, but superior in any way. I think this is the key, or one key for this time.
So Romans 11, we were already talking about it. And I think you guys do this in a beautiful way. And that is really what Paul says, that we as believers from the nations, our job is to provoke the Jewish people, to provoke Israel to jealousy. So when they see that we have a living relationship with the God of Israel, and yes, they may not understand who Messiah is, that Jesus truly is their Jewish Messiah. They will one day when he returns. But for now, if that is the thing we can reach in, through these, gatherings in the streets of Jerusalem, playing music, talking about the fact that we're believers and that we love the Jewish, we stand with them. This is provoking them to jealousy, and it opens their hearts. It makes their hearts softer towards this Jewish, this Jesus figure that they thought was a Gentile, and that whose name has been abused by Christians through 2,000 years of history, to force them to convert to a different religion. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it is. But it's also a very, very high standard Jesus is asking from us.
Yeah.
To provoke somebody to jealousy is like this. Not in any way, not in any project that I'm doing, I can do that. This is worked by the Spirit.
Yes,
this is.
Yes.
But I know you. I just want to emphasize this because this is also in our mindset.
Absolutely.
Western mindset is we are always trying to make something happen. Yeah. We're just like, okay, what is the next key? So okay, let's. They're going to Israel. Okay, we're doing this even better because we have a better guitar player. But it's not through our works, and we have to understand understand again. This is something of the miracle God is working in us, bringing forth through the Spirit, not worked by us. The gifts are for free, but the fruits, they grow, and it comes through a certain lifestyle sounds even too hard, again, like you have to do something. But actually, by focusing on Jesus, focusing on the essence or of the climax of the salvation plan. And so I say provoking somebody to jealousy is high standard. We cannot do it out of our own strength. It's
Sure.
It's a miracle.
Yeah. Sure. But I think there are things we can do.
Yes, of course.
And so you mentioned John 17, that they may be one as we are one. And the thing I pointed out yesterday in the session, and that I think it's important to point out here as well, is Jesus talking about two groups. He's talking about these and those. He's talking about his disciples, his Jewish disciples, and those who will come to faith through them, who initially will be other Jewish disciples, and then Samaritans, and then later on believers of people from the nations who would embrace the Jewish Messiah and become part of this ecclesia, this church. And so there's something right there. But what I see happening, I think you were hinting at this as well. So I just want to briefly go there before we close. Is that what I see? I see a shaking happening in the church today, in the Western church, and it's probably all around the world as well, between those who double down on their supersessionism. And for those who don't know what supersessionism means, it means replacement theology. Basically, God's done with Israel. The temple was destroyed to show that, it's no longer the religious center. The city of Jerusalem was destroyed in 135 AD. So God has no dealings with the Jewish people anymore. And so this is a system this is a belief that has been systematized through church history in different streams. But this was major theology, even in the Roman Catholic Church, until Vatican II, about 60 years ago. And thankfully they're backtracking on that. But in Protestant circles, this is still very much a core belief that, Israel no longer has value. It's the church now, through whom God is unfolding all his promises. And so there's a big part of the church that are still in that. They still believe that, and one of the results of that is that they almost turn anti-Semitic. I've seen this happen. I don't know what it's like here in Germany, but in the Netherlands, I've seen anti-Zionist, anti-Semitic tendencies in the church as a result of the initial, replacement theology. I see that happen more and more. While on the other hand, there's churches who are brightly shining. And showing that, God's still not done with Israel. He still has a plan in spite of all their mistakes. And we've made mistakes as a church too, as you already said. But it's a small group within the mainline churches and the full gospel, Pentecostal, whatever churches, evangelical as we call them in the Netherlands. There's a small group within them that still hold on to a biblical Zionist view of Scripture. So I'm not talking about political Zionists. I'm talking about a biblical Zionist view that God's not done with Israel. God's leading his people back to Zion, to the country of Israel, and they will be there because this is what God has allotted to them.
Yeah.
He's promised that to them. So to me, it's really hard to actually provoke Jewish people to jealousy, and to actually be one of the voices that will help see these end time purposes and plans come to fruition that God has for our world. If we don't agree with basic Scripture about this,
sure.
And so to me, it's like, if your church kind of pushes the Jewish people away, doesn't acknowledge that God still has a plan with them, covenantal plan. It's the opposite you're doing of provoking them to jealousy. I'm sure.
But this is part, again, part, I think, of the Western way how we live church. So if there is not, if you think you're a good sheep by only following what your denomination teaches you, this is not where your faith is based or should be based on. If crisis comes, I don't know, like we have so many moral failures now in these days coming up with pastors. If this shakes you, of course it's not nice, but if this shakes your faith, something is not right. And so I personally think I'm convinced that as I said, the whole thing is about identity. So I would encourage anybody who, and you don't have to be like an Israel expert. You don't have to be part of an Israel ministry. I even tell the people you will not lose salvation if you never visit Israel.
Really? Kidding.
But for me, like I'm convinced that if you dig deeper in your personal relationship with God, you will eventually at some point come to the point where God is pointing you into the direction of Israel. And not for the sake of supporting everything Israel does. This is another misunderstanding of the church. But to reveal more of him to yourself. So I think we are living in crucial times. So I don't know if you recognized, but for me it was very, very striking to see that, like, we were in Israel on the 7th of October, and just in these days everything happened. I don't know if you followed things on the internet a little bit in our Western charismatic world, you saw what I just said, like many ministries, many moral failures, ministry collapsing, churches collapsing out of wrong, I don't know, like sin, wrong leadership systems or structures. System is too negative. But and then if you just put all of this together, and also the 7th of October, a couple months later, after the 7th of October, I think 3 months later, I sat together with a rabbi in Jerusalem. He's not a messianic rabbi, just has a good crowd following him. And I asked him, so what do you think? Like, why did all of this happen on the 7th of October? And he said, Marcus, I think this is judgment. And like for me, it would be hard to tell them this is judgment. But from these people, he told me. And so when I connected all of this, I just see judgment always starts in the house of the Lord. Mm-hmm. And why? I mean, like, judgment, if we read the scriptures, is always, at least in the times where we live in now, is always for the sake of God being jealous. He wants to draw us back. Mm-hmm. It's time of grace. He follows even like
it's more like discipline, right?
Yeah. And discipline out of a genuine longing of having a heart relationship.
Right.
And because this is another thing, like in the Western culture, is like I have to obey God because he's an evil person somewhere. So it's always a genuine longing. I want to be together with like my creation. Right. I want to restore. Right. And and
this is why he created us as his image,
yes.
not just in his image, but as his image.
Yes.
So he could be in relationship with us. He didn't need to, but he did.
Yeah, true. And so I think like these times, as painful as they may be for many of the Christians worldwide, I personally think it's absolutely necessary, and I think God is intervening. We had the conversation yesterday. I think that God really steps in because he's caring for his people and says, I don't want to be represented in a way I am not.
Right.
And but this comes then also to theological issues, replacement theology. I'm a little relaxed in all of this. I mean, I do a lot of things practically. I'm teaching here and there. We do the project. But still, I'm not concerned in these times because I know he's in control and he's caring. And I know, again, there is room, has always been room, and there's still room to return. So, and there will be people who are still suffering. They could take an easier route when they reacted a little earlier. But sometimes it's the hard way. And so my advice is always just submit to God,
Right.
not submit to Him. Because He's good. He has good plans, and His also for eternity. His plans are good.
And so I think, coming back to the church in the West,
Yeah.
I believe that there's a separation actually happening between those that make up their own version of the narrative, the biblical narrative, that is not anchored in the text in its own context, and those who actually want to be true to what the Bible teaches from its own context. And they may not get it right in everything yet, but there's this heart's desire to constantly, hold up Scripture and to try to understand what it really teaches, what Jesus was really teaching, how these things really. I mean, just look at Scripture. Even I was reading a passage in the Gospel of John, for instance, where the Jews are painted very negatively. But then when you start to actually analyze the whole passage, it's actually not speaking about the Jews in general in those days. No. It's speaking about the Jewish leadership of probably just one particular sect. And if it's the Sadducees or the Pharisees, it doesn't even matter. Yeah. But the ordinary Jewish people loved Jesus, and they had no problem with him. So it's like but if you fail to read the Bible in its own context, yes, you will come up with anti-Semitic, explanations for that one chapter, even though it's never been the intention of the author of that gospel, John. And the same thing is with some of the things Paul says about the Jewish leaders. That's why, some people think like, well, Jesus was okay, but Paul, he's like, he's anti-Jewish. Like the Muslims, they call us Paulinians because they think that Paul has a totally different message than Jesus. No, they're totally in line. Yes. If you make the effort to understand Paul from his own first century perspective, then you see he's a Jew. He's never left behind his Judaism, and he still loves his people, and he's definitely not anti-Jewish there, and so I believe that it really demands from the church in the West to go back to fully embrace. Again, what the Scripture really not only says literally, but means literally, like from its own context. And once we help the church to do that, it's way easier to make a decision. Am I going to double down on my supersessionism, on my anti-Israel perspective? And I'm not saying you can't be critical about the Israeli government or anything. I'm not saying that. But we really have to show the church that there is actually a choice to make. Am I going to stand with his people? Yes. Or am I going to stand against them? I think Psalm 2 is a great example, with this rebellion that's being painted there. And when I read Psalm 2, I have to think of what's happening in society today. There's this rebellion going on against God, against Yahweh, against his Mashiach, his anointed. Who's that? Jesus, obviously. And then against Zion, the place where he'll set up his government. And so everything on social media is shouting, well, Zionism is wrong, it's demonic, and the blah, blah, blah. And they're whitewashing Jesus, they're Palestinianizing Jesus, they're all these other things. Well, Allah is the same God as Yahweh. No, he's not. It's a totally different perspective when you see what the Bible describes, and for instance what the Quran describes, and then what Muslims make out of it. For instance, and so what I'm saying is that we as believers, we cannot buy into these narratives that are either extremely secular or are birthed from Islam or Palestinianism. I use that word because it's almost like a religion these days. And so we got to stick with the text in its own context. Anyway,
I guess this is the only way to navigate through these times, these last times, and to not be shaken too much.
I really believe that. Yeah. So as you're watching this, my challenge to you is, I believe there's one thing that that the Lord wants from us, and that is covenant loyalty. God cut a covenant with Israel, through Abraham, and then through, at Mount Sinai with the whole people, and then with King David. And we're included in the covenant because of Jesus. But it's not made with us, but we're part of that through him. But if God cuts a covenant with a people, he wants loyalty from us. He wants our allegiance. And so I believe the best thing we can do as believers is to really have that covenant loyalty back to him. That doesn't mean we're perfect. We make our own mistakes in different ways, but God is looking at our hearts. Just like King David, I love that example, how he made so many mistakes, yet he still called a man after God's own heart, because he chose to remain loyal to the God of Israel. And I believe that we, as followers of the Jewish Messiah, as from the nations, that God is calling us to stand in this covenant loyalty with the God of Israel. And so if you haven't made that decision, it is an important decision to make, to say, Lord, here I am. I want to follow you. I want to be fully on board with your purposes and plans. I want to submit to you. I want to be part of your kingdom that's coming, and I want to proclaim that kingdom. And I want to turn away from false allegiances, false world systems, from sin, from anything else that holds me back from following the Lord. So surrender to him today, because the time is short. Jesus is coming back soon, and we got to be ready for his return. God bless you.